Imagine this, a group of 9 experienced hikers on a winter trek in the Ural Mountains, suddenly abandoning their tent in the middle of the night, barefoot, half-dressed, walking out into the snowy void. Bodies were found in the most disturbing ways: burned, broken ribs, gouged eyes, missing tongues, and even radioactive clothing. What could have possibly driven them out of their tent like that, and what, or who, could have caused such terrifying injuries? One of the strangest, most unsettling mysteries of the 20th century. This is the mystery of Dyatlov Pass. So let me start off by saying this video is going to be a bit longer because of how strange the Dyatlov Pass incident really was. The hikers had documented everything. With over 33 rolls of film and 500 different photographs, we have a lot to talk about, so let's dive in. Alright, to set the scene, it was January 1959, deep winter in the Ural Mountains of Russia. 10 students from the Ural Polytechnical Institute had decided to take on a serious trip. This was not your typical weekend hike. This was meant to be a 15 to 16 day challenge. Their goal was Mount Atorton, and completing it would earn them the Grade 3 hiking certification, the highest level in the Soviet Union at the time. These weren't beginners. Every single person in the group was trained and prepared for the cold. Igor Dyatlov was their leader. Igor was calm, methodical, and smart, traits that were necessary because the mountains they were heading into weren't forgiving. The journey started with a 2-day hike to the village of Vizhai, where one of the hikers, Yuri Yudin, started having serious joint pain. He'd had health issues before, but this time it had just gotten too much. Yuri made the decision to turn back and head home, a choice that may have been difficult at first, but ultimately ended up saving his life. That left 9 people, 7 men and 2 women. They reached the village on January 27th, took a night to rest, and began the long trek into the mountains themselves. The conditions were brutal: deep snow, freezing temperatures, and winds that made it nearly impossible to see more than a few meters ahead. It was easy to lose your sense of direction in that kind of weather, and that's exactly what happened. The group ended up on the slope of a mountain, which name roughly translates to Dead Mountain in the local Nancy language. Even without knowing the story, you can tell this was not a place you wanted to get lost. Everything changed in this moment. Instead of turning back or trying to find safer ground, Dyatlov made the call to camp right there, on the slope, in the middle of the storm. Looking back, this was the beginning of a nightmare. The Dyatlov group documented everything. They carried cameras, journals, even a logbook that detailed each day of the journey. The photos they took would later become the last snapshots of their lives. Back then, there were no cell phones, no GPS, no anything. Once they left Vizhai, they were completely cut off from the rest of the world. Their only plan of communication was a telegram Igor promised to send once they returned to civilization, somewhere around February 12th. So when that date came and went, no one panicked right away. Delays were normal in the mountains, especially with the kind of weather they were facing. But as days turned into a week, and there was still no word, the families all started to worry. Soon, search teams began to form. Students, volunteers, and eventually even the Soviet military. They were told to look for any trace of the 9 missing hikers somewhere deep in the northern Urals. However, no one could have imagined what they were about to find. After nearly a week of searching, on February 26th, one of the rescue teams spotted something unusual through the snow. A faint shape, barely visible on the mountainside. It was the Dyatlov group's tent, and what immediately stood out to the rescuers was the cuts in the tent, as if someone had slashed their way out. At first, that might not sound so strange. Maybe the zipper was frozen, but what unsettled everyone was how chaotic it looked. There were multiple slashes, wide, uneven, frantic, and all of the hikers' belongings were still neatly laid out inside. Boots, coats, food, and cameras, even their journals. Everything was left untouched. What made them cut their way out? It wasn't calm, it wasn't planned. Whatever it was, It happened fast. Outside the tent, rescuers found several faint lines of footprints leading down the slope heading toward the forest below. Some of the footprints showed they were barefoot, and weather that cold, that kind of exposure usually means death in minutes. Something had gone terribly wrong inside that tent, and the mountain was about to give up its first clues. The searchers followed the faint trail of footprints down the slope. About a kilometer from the tent, near the tree line, they spotted something dark. A fire pit, and beside it, 2 bodies. The first body they found was that of Yuri Doroshenko. Yuri was found with no shoes on, face down, and wearing only shorts and a t-shirt. When his body was inspected, they found his face was covered in blood. His body was covered in cuts and bruises, and he was burned on his head and feet. Most experts think these injuries were self-inflicted in his final moments of agony, symptoms often seen in extreme cases of hypothermia. The second body discovered in the same spot was a man named Yuri Krivonishenko. Krivonishenko was found with similar injuries as Doroshenko, and also wearing minimal clothing. However, his knuckle was located in his mouth, meaning he probably bit it off due to the pain of freezing cold. The cause of the deaths of Krivonishenko and Doroshenko were ruled as hypothermia, and from there the search continued. Searchers started moving backward toward the tent, following what was left of the footprints. Not far from the forest line, they found the next 3 members of the group. It was Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kalamagorova, and Rustam Slobodin. All 3 were positioned between the cedar and the tent, almost like they had been trying to make it back, but didn't have the strength to finish the climb. Igor Dyatlov was the first found, lying on his back, fists clenched. Cuts and bruises on his face and a missing tooth resulted in experts to conclude Igor was in some kind of physical altercation, like a fight, before his death. However, again, his official cause of death was hypothermia. Zinaida Kalamagorova was the next woman in the group to be found. She was a few hundred feet from Igor, face down in the snow, with visible bruises on her hands, maybe from crawling, but experts aren't sure. She also appeared to have been beaten by some kind of baton. Her official cause of death was ruled hypothermia due to traumatic injury. Finally, after a week of searching below the snow and a kilometer trek between the campfire and the tent, Rustam Slobodin's body was found. When they examined him, they found his skull was badly fractured and there was internal bleeding in both temples. Most investigators agreed they'd probably died of hypothermia, but they just couldn't piece together why the group ever fled their tent. 5 hikers were gone now, 4 were still missing, and when the last 4 were found, that's when things stopped becoming explainable. So let's be real, slashing their way out of the tent is definitely weird, but their deaths mainly look like they died of hypothermia. Although it is very unfortunate, it's not really unexplainable. But when they found the next 4 bodies, that's when things got really weird. Two months after the initial search, as the snow began to melt, rescuers returned to the mountains with a renewed line of investigation. What they discovered there didn't match anything they'd seen before. The bodies were partially buried in the snow and ice, preserved by the freezing temperatures, but the injuries were shocking. Lyudmila Dubinina, the other woman in the group, was found here. She had been badly mutilated. Her chest had been crushed with massive internal force, causing multiple broken ribs, a fractured sternum, and severe damage to the heart. Parts of her lips and face were missing, her eyes gouged out, and her tongue was missing too. Blood in her stomach, indicating that this had happened while she was still alive. Her cause of death was ultimately due to damage to her heart. Semyon Zolotaryov had similar chest trauma. So severe, experts compared it to injuries often seen in high-speed car crashes. He had multiple broken ribs and internal damage, along with both of his eyes missing as well. The internal damage alone was enough to be fatal. Semyon also was found with a deep bloody gash to the back of his head, yet strangely his cause of death was labeled as hypothermia. Nikolai Thibault Brinolas, the tallest and strongest of the group. He had a shattered skull. The force required to cause it should not be possible for a human, as no soft tissue on the top of the head was damaged. But for him, his death was ruled death by powerful force, which many argue is the strangest cause of death in this mystery. Alexander Kolovatov, the last hiker found, was comparatively less injured than the rest. He had a broken neck and a broken nose, but unlike Semyon and the others, he was not missing his eyes nor his tongue. Again, his death was labeled as hypothermia. Investigators were baffled. These injuries were unlike anything the first 5 bodies had. The first group mostly died from exposure, hypothermia, and panic that forced them out of the tent. But the last 4, their injuries suggested extreme internal force, almost as if they were imploding. Nothing, not even a tree or rock, could explain that damage. And to make things even stranger, some of the clothing found on the bodies were found with slight traces of radiation. Puzzled by this, investigators began searching the area and found radiation detected all over for no explainable reason. Another mystery that added layers of confusion. By the time these 4 were discovered, the Dyatlov Pass case had stopped being just a tragic accident. It had become one of the strangest, most disturbing mysteries in modern history. No one could explain how 9 experienced hikers had perished that night, and why the last 4 bore injuries that looked like they'd been crushed from the inside out. One of the most widely discussed explanations for what happened at Dyatlov Pass is the avalanche theory. On that night, the group was camped on an exposed slope. Avalanches are sudden, powerful, and terrifying. It makes sense that people suggest the hikers, hearing or sensing a slide, panicked, fled the tent, and ran off into the freezing cold. The tent had been cut from the inside. Footprints led away in a single file, and most of the hikers were found without proper clothing, all signs consistent with people running for their lives. The location of the campsite adds weight to this idea. The slope was open, with snow piled above them. It's easy to imagine a sudden shift causing fear and forcing them out into the storm. And the way the footprints led away from the tent, removing single file, seems to show organized movement, a group trying to escape danger. But there are problems with this theory. The slope wasn't steep enough to trigger a major avalanche, and searchers found no debris around the tent. And the severe injuries of the last 4 hikers could not have been caused by a normal snowslide. If a large avalanche had occurred, the bodies would likely have been buried under meters of snow, not found scattered across the slope and in a den as they were. So while the avalanche theory and the idea of a misinterpreted sound are the most widely cited natural explanations, they leave a number of questions unanswered, and that's part of why the Dyatlov Pass mystery continues to fascinate and terrify people to this day. One of the most convincing explanations is a psychological breakdown caused by the extreme conditions. These hikers weren't inexperienced, far from it, but the Ural Mountains in the winter were brutal, and even the most seasoned adventurers can reach their limits. Severe hypothermia can do strange things to the mind. One phenomenon, called paradoxical undressing, occurs when the body gets so cold that it misinterprets the freezing temperatures as overheating. Victims begin removing their clothes, convinced they are burning up. This helps explain why the first 2 bodies found were with such little clothing, despite the temperatures that would kill in minutes. There's also the theory of infrasound panic. In certain conditions, low-frequency wind vibrations can cause a deep, eerie hum that humans can feel but not consciously hear. Studies suggest these vibrations can trigger anxiety, panic, or even hallucinations. Imagine being in the middle of a blizzard, exhausted, unable to see more than a few meters ahead of you, and suddenly feeling an invisible, terrifying presence. While this explanation doesn't account for everything, like the internal injuries or traces of radiation, it could give plausible framework for why the hikers might have acted in ways that seem irrational to us. Sometimes the mind and body under extreme stress make choices that are terrifying to watch in hindsight. Psychological breakdown may not tell the full story of the Dyatlov Pass, but it does offer one of the most human explanations for why 9 experienced hikers could make such critical mistakes. Some of the earliest explanations pointed to the local Mansi people. The Mansi are indigenous to the region, and legends from their culture speak of spirits and entities that inhabit the mountains. One theory suggests that hikers may have been attacked. The idea stems in part from a nearby ritual structure, or chum, used by the Mansi for sacrifices. Some theorists speculated the hikers were seen as intruders and that an attack was carried out. However, when investigators looked closer, the evidence didn't support a human attack. The injuries suffered by the hikers simply couldn't have been inflicted by people without tools. There were also no additional tracks at the scene, and the Mansi have no recorded history of harming outsiders. The chum in the area was later determined to be for animal sacrifices, not for humans. Among the more sensational explanations for Dyatlov Pass is the idea that the hikers encountered some sort of unknown creature like a yeti. This theory often points to the photograph taken during the investigation, which shows a dark, human-like figure in the snow. While the photo is authentic, no one can say for sure what it depicts. Proponents of the Yeti theory argue that the extreme injuries, the panic in the tent, and the hikers' flight into the storm could have all been explained by encounter with a powerful unknown predator. However, the biggest issue with this theory is there are no tracks other than the hikers' own, no sightings beyond a single photo, and no biological proof has ever been found. It could be possible it was some kind of supernatural creature with unexplainable abilities, but there's just no way to say that with any kind of confidence. Still, the Yeti theory endures. It taps into a fundamental fear of the unknown, the idea that something beyond human understanding could have caused this panic. The possibility of a creature lurking in the Ural Mountains is one of the more chilling ideas surrounding the Dyatlov Pass incident, and one that keeps people debating decades later. One of the most enduring theories about the Dyatlov Pass incident is that the hikers may have encountered something not of this world. The strange injuries, such as crushed ribs, missing eyes, and tongues torn out, seem too violent and precise to be caused by an avalanche. Even more chilling is the fact that the bodies emitted high levels of radiation, something that has never been fully explained. These anomalies have led many to speculate the group may have stumbled upon an extraterrestrial craft or military site involving alien technology. Eyewitness reports from that time support this theory. Locals and other hikers in the Ural Mountains reported seeing strange glowing orbs in the sky around the same nights the Dyatlov group went missing. If a UFO had crashed or landed near the hikers' camp, the group could have gone to investigate, resulting in a deadly confrontation or exposure to unknown energies. Possibly the creepiest bit of evidence supporting this theory is the water-damaged images recovered from the camera from one of the hikers, showing what appears to be a light source in the sky captured on camera in multiple photos. Whether it was just a beam of light, an encounter with a non-human entity, or radiation from a nearby craft, the evidence suggests that they were reacting to an immediate overwhelming threat. The Soviet Union's quick and secretive handling of the case only adds to the mystery. If the government knew extraterrestrial involvement was possible, covering it up would have been their top priority. Another explanation that's gained a lot of attention over the years involves the Soviet military. In 1959, this part of the Urals was used for secret testing, rockets, explosives, and possibly even sonic or radiological experiments. Some theorists suggest the hikers may have stumbled into a restricted zone during one of these active tests, which could explain several of the strange details from the case. With the group fleeing in the middle of the storm, some believe that if a military test went wrong, the hikers may have panicked and run, trying to escape an invisible threat. Then there's the secrecy surrounding the investigation. Reports were inconsistent. Some autopsies were delayed or altered, and the full case file wasn't released for decades. Soviet authorities reportedly suppressed information for 3 years, fueling speculation that something highly sensitive occurred. Even small details, like a soldier's boot print, allegedly found near the hiker's path, have been added to the mystery. But the theory remains compelling to many because it could tie together multiple oddities, such as aliens or Yeti attack, and the Soviet government wanted them covered up. The Soviet military theory raises the possibility that the Dyatlov Pass tragedy wasn't just a natural accident, that human involvement, hidden behind layers of government secrecy, may have played a part in what really happened. After everything we've explored, one thing becomes clear. The Dyatlov Pass incident isn't just a story with a neat ending. Every theory offers pieces of the puzzle, but none can fully explain what happened that night. Was it a natural disaster like an avalanche? Or is there a deeper, darker explanation? What's haunting about the Dyatlov Pass isn't just the tragedy itself, it's the lingering questions that refuse to be answered. Dyatlov Pass is more than a historical event. It's a reminder of how fragile life can be when faced with the raw, unpredictable forces of nature, and how some mysteries may never truly be solved.